Hello, my name is Samuel Bartels, and as part of my final project for the Radio Health and Safety course, as part of the GSMA capacity building, I want to talk about planning exclusion zones and their productivity using Ghana's experience. Now, in Ghana, since the liberalization of the telecommunications sector in the late 1990s, telecom coverage has been expanded by the telephony companies to underserved and unserved communities all across the country. Now, with this expansion has come the inevitable enmeshment of communities with towers which have been installed all over the countries. Along with that, many concerns have been raised about the safety of these towers. But with no conclusive studies available to fall on, the concerns have festered. Some of them essentially have been misconceptions over time. Now, at some point, the government stepped in to try to remedy these conceptions and these health and safety concerns. This resulted in Ghana coming up with tower guidelines, which were established in 2010 as part of measures to regulate the construction and siting of towers in Ghana. An interministerial committee was set up to address the concerns of the public and also to take appropriate action to harmonize the growth and development on the one hand and the public safety, which was perceived to have concerns about safety of these towers. Now, according to the Tower Guidelines document, the terms of reference were as follows. 1, to provide clear standards and procedures for the installation of towers and also address the issues of environmental safety and sanity. And it is on this first objective that this paper will focus on. We want to examine the resultant planning exclusion zoning requirements which were introduced as a result of these guidelines, and examine the effect on pre- and post-guidelines installed towers. We also want to examine what the key reasons have been for the apparent failure of these guidelines in terms of the zoning requirements, and what the role of the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies have been in terms of making this a success. According to the Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications, on January 14, 2011, the government of Ghana, through the National Communications Authority, issued a notice of the publication of the guidelines after lifting a ban on the erection of towers. What followed was a 5-year moratorium to allow all existing towers to be regularized and to be able to meet the standards which had been set in place. Now, here are highlights of the standards that the government brought under the guidelines. For residential facilities, they were supposed to be not less than 20 meters from the base of a tower to the nearest boundary fence or the nearest structure. Educational institutions were supposed to be situated not less than 150 meters from the nearest classroom or dormitories in terms of where the towers were supposed to be sited. Now, these zoning limitations were imposed on towers that existed before the guidelines came into place in 2010. But it did not take cognizance of the fact that over the years, otherwise properly sited towers had been encroached upon by rapid development, especially in the urban areas. Secondly, the zoning limitations were imposed only on the tower companies to ensure that they were situated at the distance that had been prescribed in the guidelines. What they didn't do was to impose a commensurate responsibility on planning authorities to ensure that where a tower already existed, developments, residential facilities, educational facilities, industrial facilities, did not also develop to the point of encroaching within the areas where these towers had been sited. The result of this has been that over the years there has been a lot of encroachment, and the zoning restrictions have not been able to work as was expected. So what does this mean in terms of going forward? Well, going forward, these distance requirements look impractical to implement, and it's become a major challenge to the telecommunications industry in Ghana, particularly in urban areas where buildings are constructed close to each other. And this is also the case given the unavailability of lands which are not already taken. Now, as observed in the GSMA supported hypothetical analysis which was conducted in Melbourne in Australia, such a policy negatively impacts the ability to locate future community facilities by effectively excluding substantial areas from consideration as potential locations. According to the Chamber of Telecoms in Ghana, it estimates that if the sites that are found to not be in conformity with the guidelines are decommissioned, it could lead to a loss of an estimated 14% of the total number of existing towers, which is about 500 towers, which may lead to about 27% of mobile subscribers, approximately 9 million, losing network or having lower network quality. And the Chamber has expressed its position by supporting that conclusion which came from the studies which was done in Melbourne. And the studies that was done in Melbourne concluded that the many negative consequences mean that distance-based planning exclusive zones are not effective, are not an effective response to community concerns about the siting of base stations. So our conclusion is supported by the Ghana case, that zoning exclusion requirements are not always successful in ensuring that the safety concerns of individuals are addressed within communities, because the issue of access to communication and the health and safety concerns always have to be balanced.